Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the next edition of AmiSights. I'm Cesar, your host, along with my co-host, Lynn Ozer, aka SBA Queen. So excited to have my friend Cesar Quintero with us. Cesar is the master of lots of stuff. Okay. And I'm so excited to learn all about him and his background, his entrepreneurial journey, what he's up to today, and we all have things we can learn from him. Cesar, thank you for joining the call and joining us today.
Thank you for being here. I love the invitation and just getting to talk important things with you guys.
So where did it all start? When did this entrepreneurial spirit hit you? And how did you go about conquering that desire?
Entrepreneurial spirit, that started very early in life. I think I was born in Houston, Texas, with a twin sister, and I lost my parents very young. So I was 6 years old when I lost my parents, and I moved back to Venezuela. My uncle and aunt adopted us, and I had the fortune of having this amazing family and growing up in an amazing place. So I think it's twofold. I think since early age, I had this dual thing around entrepreneurship. The first one was, as an adoptee, I needed to take care of myself. I needed to, be independent and not be a burden on my family, subconsciously, I think. But then on the other side, so is my twin, but my twin never chose the entrepreneurial path. So I'm thinking that it could be the other version of, I just needed to always look for something to do. So, I was that kid selling popcorn and lemonade, and I was doing those things. And actually, my first entrepreneurial venture, I was 15 years old, and I was in Venezuela. You go to boys' schools and girls' schools, right? And at that age, we all want to get to know girls and go in parties and dance and do all these things. And me and my best friend, she was a great dancer, and we loved dancing in every party. And we had younger siblings that wanted to do that. So we're like, why don't we set up like a party and we charge kids $10 so that they all can come and meet different kids, and we teach them how to dance. So that's how my first endeavor started, as a dance teacher. But it got so good that I had to hire my friends, and we had 5 different classes going simultaneously.
That's hysterical.
And it was really fun. Yeah. So that was my first into like, if I do a little bit of effort, I can get money. And I started, I chipped away at my car with that. So that was a good way to do that.
Oh, great.
Fun. Did you go to college in Venezuela, or did you have further education somewhere else?
I did. I went to college in Venezuela. I went to a very technical university, like an MIT. It's only pure sciences and engineering. And I studied process engineering. So I went through that. It had like a master in business at the end. So it was a good combo dual thing with engineering and business. And then I went to work with Procter & Gamble for a couple of years. So got to learn a little bit about structure, process, corporate. They had their global headquarters for Latin America and Venezuela. So I got a chance to be there. And then sadly, the country started going down, right? Politically, economically. And I was early. I left in 2003. I was 23 years old at the time. And I decided to get married, move to Miami, and start a business all at the same time. Because, there's no risk at that age.
Right.
What business did you start?
So, I got here to Miami, and Miami's all about health and wellness and all this stuff. And I saw this need that in the pocket where all the businesses were, there were very few healthy options to eat. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to start a healthy meal delivery service. Now, today, it sounds very normal, and it's been normalized, but this is 2003. It's pre-Uber Eats, pre-Facebook, pre-Google Maps. I had a logistics company before Google Maps was created. So we had a commissary kitchen, and we cooked and delivered healthy meals to people in their office every day. So that's what we did back in 2003. And I had that business all up till 2016.
Was that just locally in Miami?
Yeah, it was hyper local because it was
fresh food and
freshly made every morning.
Yeah.
We would cook it every morning, early in the morning, and then deliver it every day to people in their office.
So that was like pre Blue Apron and Fresh, whatever it's called, and Fresh Direct or
Did you sell that in 2016?
I did. The sell of that was interesting. So I eventually sold to 2 of my employees. So it's a long story from the 2003 to the 2016 version. But while the company kept growing, I realized in 2012, I got hit with a class action lawsuit. So I had Uber before Uber, right? So I had 17 drivers. We were delivering 1,500 meals a day within 3 hours.
Wow.
And they were contractors, they were independent drivers, they had their own insurance, their own cars. Some of them even delivered for my competitors. I didn't care. But I was the 5th company targeted by a woman and an attorney in a wage and hour claim. And, like if they're not contractors or employees. So the same thing Uber went through later. I went all in and I wanted to prove that I did everything right. And we went through the courts. And it took a lot of my energy and my passion. And I realized at that point that everything I had built up to then wasn't sustainable. I wasn't producing the money or the savings that the company needed in case of emergencies. I was just running through and growing for growth's sake. So 2012 was a big wake up moment for me where I shifted and said, okay, this can't be what business is for. I need to shift my priorities. So that's when I started learning more about EOS and purpose with Simon Sinek and open book management with Jack Stack and like different philosophies on how to be a better leader and manager. So I shifted a lot of who I was in 2012. I call it my wake up year, where I shifted a lot of the way I positioned things and I made it more about them than me. So that was a big shift I had that year.
Wow. And when you sold it, you were over that lawsuit that was behind you and all that.
Yeah. So 2012, we settled the case very fast. It got to a judge, and the judge, it went really fast. But it took a lot of money and attorneys and trying to defend myself. At the end, we won, but I had to pay the attorneys. So what I had to do was turn and be vulnerable with my team for the first time and was say, I need your help. I can't do this by myself. We don't have enough money to pay all these attorneys and all these things. So that's when we turned the books and we did open book management. Everybody took initiative. And I think it was the first time I saw the power of everybody rallying for one cause. So I had 37 employees at the time. And everybody just said like, okay, all our objective is to pay these attorneys so we can all continue to have a job here. And we all put our effort and energy towards it. And we quadrupled in profit and doubled in size within 2 years. It was crazy. And it was a huge
What exactly happened? I mean, you put together everybody's ideas. What was what you had to do besides increase revenue and decrease expenses, but more specifically?
Yeah.
How did you do that?
I followed. So we implemented the Entrepreneurial Operating System with Traction, the book from Gino Wickman, and that kind of created a decentralized me as a decision maker. I think before then I had leaders, but every decision was made by me. Everybody was coming to me for answers, and I think I was always like this. I think I was always the smartest person in the room, quote unquote, right? But I think what EOS and Traction helped me do is help me empower them to make decisions and to take that on, and everybody grab a sense of ownership around roles and responsibilities. Mm-hmm. The other big thing that we shifted was we followed the book from Jack Stack in A Great Game of Business. So we opened the books to my employees. I had nothing to share. I had very poor profits, right? We're like at 5% profit. And in the first question in that book, it says, ask your team how much you think you pocket in after you sell a product, right? So I tell them like, hey, we sell our meals for $10. How much you think we pocket at the end of the day? And they're like, $7, $8. And I'm like, oh my gosh, we're pocketing 50 cents per meal. And I showed them, this is what happens. This is where it goes. So a lot of financial education, of course, I'm talking about, we have cooks and drivers and so most of them didn't have that financial education of what impact they had in all of our line items within our profit and loss. So it got to a point where everybody owned a line item. Everybody owned. So we had a person in the kitchen who owned utilities. So back in the day when I would yell at people because they kept the air too cold and they left it overnight, now we had a person in the kitchen who, if somebody left the fridge door open, they would yell at them and just close the fridge door. Right. So like everybody really owned their number and their thing. And it just, it's a mindset shift that happened, that before it was all due to me, and now it was all due to us. And I think it was a huge shift that, you know, I still take to this day on a huge learning I had in my entrepreneurial journey.
That's great.
How did it go to sell to your employees? What led you to that decision? How did you do it? What was your process? How did it feel?
Yeah, so EO was a big part of that, because I think the entrepreneurs organization I was part of, and you know, where I know Ami from is, you know, I started seeing things where I was hyper local in a very logistics and intense business. Food, low margin, and logistics is tough. So I had a tough low margin business. So I went from that, and then I started going more and more into different events, and they asked me to start facilitating a group of accelerators and different entrepreneurs that were going through similar things that I went through. And what I realized is that I loved that empowerment piece, that teaching piece, that dance teacher that I was before. Now I could do, but with business, right? And with something that I really loved and that really changed my life. So the more I got into that, the less I liked my business. So the more I withdrew from my business. I was working on my business at that time. Probably by 2015, I was working 1 day a week. And my team was really leading the charge, doing all the things that they needed to do. But the business was at that turning point that we had more competition. We had a lot more things going on. We needed to evolve. And I didn't have the energy to really put into the business and the visionary work that I needed to put into, because my passion wasn't there anymore. So they said, Cesar, you either step in or like let us go, because like we need to keep growing and we need to take this business to the next level. We're getting left behind by our competitors. And I was looking at it more as a lifestyle business. And so this all happened. A chef came in, and he came from money. I had no idea. And we were trying to expand in geography. And he's like, I'll put money in. I want to, because, you know, they have access to the numbers. They can see our numbers. They can see our things. It's open book management. So he was really interested in investing. And I told him, I was like, why don't we just become 50-50 partners? Like, I don't really want to be here fully in. I'm doing this other stuff. I had started a software company and a consulting company. So I'm like, I want to do more of that. So I sold my first half in 2016 to Josh. So Josh is still the owner. Now he's a 100% owner. So that was the first transition where I sold to our chef, who really brought that energy and that he wanted to create a ghost kitchen, which was what was happening at the time, where we could do different meals for different types of people and not only be stuck in what our menu was at the time. So that was the first deal.
When he bought, bought into your business and paid you money, was that money just invested back into the business to do what he wanted to do with it? And did you see the results that he expected?
It was two ways. So the first way was me cashing out a little bit, because I had saved well. Right. So I had to pay my early investors and some pocket money for me. So at that time we were really well positioned. Our profitability was going really well. So it was a decent exit, not an amazing I'm retiring exit, but it was a good transition. Some money was left behind in the company for growth and innovation. And they were able to deliver, and thank God, because when we got to COVID, if we hadn't shifted, that company would cease to exist, because we were a healthy meal delivery for corporate. So if Josh and the team hadn't pivoted when they did, and I would have anchored them I'm in a lifestyle business, I don't want to put any more energy towards this, they wouldn't have been able to survive COVID.
So that business is still living and thriving today?
It's still living and thriving. There's a lot of competition, a lot of stuff. They went more towards the products So now they have like collagen cookies and paleo and a lot of different diets. And now they're operating one kitchen and several menus off it. So a ghost kitchen, which is where the whole trend is gone now. So they really shifted the concept that I had and I helped as my baby to a new concept that's more evolving within the market and what the customers need today. For sure.
Cesar, you go through this, it's amazing, and you sell out, and now you're free from this business. And what happens next?
Yeah, so I start doing what I did for myself for others, right? So I'm like, okay, so I learned how to do this for myself. So, and I love the facilitation, the coaching. So I became a consultant, that word we all hate. Um, so
We don't
EOS
hate it.
called me and said, you know, you're a success case in South Florida. We don't have anybody who does and teaches EOS or is an implementer in EOS in South Florida. Would you want to do this? And I'm like, sure. So I started doing it, but then I realized the life of a consultant is a lonely life, and I'm a builder of people. I'm a builder of teams. So I said, so for a couple of years, I was doing it, and I helped a ton of companies do it. And at the end, I'm like, no, I need to build something. So I launched 2 companies during COVID in 2020. One was a consulting firm here locally in Miami, where now we have 8 implementers and over 220 companies where we implement EOS, and we're the largest EOS firm in the world, I like to say. And then the other one is I launched something a little more dear to my heart and purpose is I launched an online entrepreneurial platform in Spanish for Latin America. So helping Latins, because I think it's underserved, and most of Latin America, they would do so better off as an entrepreneur than as a professional. So we teach professionals on how to start a business on the side as a minimum viable product using the lean startup philosophy so that they can start a business on the side and then leave that job and then become an entrepreneur. Because, you know, in my world, I believe entrepreneurship really changes the world. It's not big companies. It's not government. It's not, you know, institutions. It's more about entrepreneurial. We have a direct impact in our communities. So that we started about 4 years ago. And so it's an online platform. It's a community, but we also have coaching certification. So today we have 250 coaches across Latin America and around 950 students online who are all, and actually this week we have our conference here in Miami. It's our 3rd yearly conference where we have over 300 entrepreneurs fly in. It's all in Spanish. So we have only Spanish speakers and Spanish content for Hispanic entrepreneurs. So I'm really proud of that business, and that's my purpose business. And I love the impact we're able to do there too.
There's so many Spanish speaking people right here. Do you get domestic attendance as well as foreign?
We do. We get a lot of Hispanic immigrants who haven't learned the language well, and they come into their communities.
Right.
But also we empower them to find a way to start a business here. Because in US, like US is heaven for entrepreneurship, I think, right? It's easy to set up an LLC. It's easy to get a TIN number. It's like, it makes it easy. And in Latin American countries, it's a little harder. There's a lot more bureaucracy. There's a lot more tug and pull. So we're trying to help them navigate that as well. But I would say, 30% of our team, of our community is US and Canada based.
And is that just for startups, or is that for existing businesses as well?
So when we started 4 years ago, it was just for startups. We had called it foundational, but now we've graduated. Now we have an accelerator arm and a scale arm. So now we have businesses that are from startups and creation to now they're more on the high level side of growth. But I would say, if these are rough estimates, I would say 90% of companies in Latin America are mostly on the foundational size, and then like 5% are in the acceleration size, and 5% are in the scale size. So that's kind of where we're at. But yeah.
How do you split your time between the passion project and your EOS?
Yeah, so I practice what I preach. So I worked probably 10% of my time on the consulting firm. I worked 10% of my time on EGM, which is the Latin firm, the Emprendedor. but I have integrators and leadership teams in each of them. So they're running with leadership teams on their side, and I'm mostly there just to give direction and strategy. And then I also have a practice, so I also do implementation. So I usually have like between 15 and 20 companies that I implement for directly as well. And then I also have a lot of volunteer work that I love to do all over. So I would say 70% of my time is my own practice, and I have 10%, the other 10% on the volunteering.
How is EOS land? How is EOS land these days? There's been a lot of changes in EOS the last couple of years. How's that going for you?
There has been, I think the brand is on fire right now. People are really looking forward to it. There's over 80,000 companies running on it. I think the biggest change was most internally. So Gino sold to a private equity about 3 years ago. And some US states were deeming we were a membership model as implementers, and they were deeming us as franchisees. So they had to shift to a franchisee model, but it was mostly an internal side on our side for companies, and it's been thriving for companies and people. There's now a lot of companies that, openly in LinkedIn, you have the integrators and we run on EOS, and, the different philosophies out there are booming. So I think right now it's just a way, it's so simple too, that anybody can really get to it. So it's spread like wildfire.
When you do EOS, do you do pure EOS, or do you incorporate open book management in your practice, or how do you do that?
So I teach. So what I like to do is I like to teach pure EOS because that's its simplest form. But there's always complementary things that people need, right? So in EOS, we teach you need to develop your processes and systems, but we don't talk so much on the how you develop the processes and systems, right? So we need to invest in financial education for our team, right? And cash flow management and all that stuff. So, if I bring an extra tool to help you do that. So I also help a little bit with the how. So I guess that's how that works. But fundamentally, I feel the system is simple enough that it creates a baseline for every company to really function and improve communication. And then all the things on the how are mostly complementary, which is really what the firm is based on as well, on complementing companies on how to do things better internally.
It's fascinating.
No, I'll give you tell me what you think about this. And because maybe a year ago, I started this debate on EOS past and present, and Facebook. I got a bunch of people angry at me, but that's not unusual for me. So I was down, I think, at Deal Exchange last year, and I was doing one of my Ami hot seat kind of open sessions, and there was a guy in there who was paying thousands of dollars a month for EOS, but his bookkeeping was 9 months behind. His cash flow was all screwed up, and he didn't have any baseline accounting systems and processes, and it was impossible to get him a loan unless he went to sort of Uncle Guido rates because of how bad his bookkeeping and his accounting was.
Yeah.
And what I said is, how can you make any decisions or strategy for your company, or even be worrying about EOS now, or even thinking about all this stuff? I go, you need to stop everything you're doing and all those time and resources and dollars that you can't afford right now, and you need to fix your accounting. And you need to have baseline data that's clean so you can make good decisions, and then you can go back to EOS or whatever you want later. And people got mad at me. They're like, no, he needed EOS to discover his problem and this and that and the other. I go, no, you don't. EOS in my mind is great, but if you don't have baseline good numbers that you're running your business off of, and your basic accounting isn't working, you can't afford EOS yet. I don't know if you agree with me or disagree with me.
I think EOS is a system that helps you focus on what you need to focus on. right?
Right.
A lot of people come to me and say, hey, how do I know EOS is working? I'm like, it depends on what you're looking for, right? And in my first business, the food business, for me, it was I needed to get away from that business. Like I needed time. So for me, it wasn't about profitability. It wasn't about growth. It was mostly about I need my time back. So how do I?
Right.
So for me, my return on investment on EOS was, can I get my time back? Right. For some people, it's about scale. For some people, it's about profitability. Now, EOS does something very important, and people who sign up for EOS and any of these systems, EOS assumes you have the right person for strategy, assumes you have the right person for finance, assumes you have the right person for operations, right? So if you don't have these foundational things strong, you can't get to the next level because we're assuming when we go in that you got the basics handled, right? And if you don't, then that has to become the priority where all the rocks and all the systems need to go towards. So for you to get that basic thing solved, right? So I think I would relate EOS as a people management system. It's how do you get people to align? How do you get people to communicate better? How do you get people to do things in a more accountable way? It's not so much about strategy and operations and finance, right? So if you look at EOS as a people management system, that's where you would ask is like, do you need a people management system or do you need basic accounting right now for your company to thrive? Right.
But in the EO community, EOS has almost become like religion.
Well, it's because it's gotten so many people, so many results, right?
No,
but
I get it. I'm not.
But I agree with you. I agree with you. A lot of times when you're in a room and they're making decisions that are not, especially today, Ami, right? Today, nowadays, making decisions without data is like making decisions without market and consumer insights.
How can you do it?
You can't. So that's why, like, those are the basic foundations, but then EOS just helps you have the conversation. So it depends on where, on what comes first. I don't know, right?
The chicken. What comes first, the chicken or the egg?
A lot of times when I walk into a company, they think they're amazing, and then we ask the right questions. They're like, "Oh my God, we need to solve these holes we had no idea we had." Right? So sometimes it just bubbles up. It's like, oh, our accounting. Like accounting is important when you're looking for a loan, when you're looking for different things, when you're making decisions on what products to cut, what discounts to do, how to grow, right? What pricing to do. So that's I agree with you. Like there are people that are not ready for systems yet, right? You need to prove yourself to a certain level. And I think I would bring EOS in when you're ready to start letting go. That's what EOS is really for. It's succession planning. It's focus driven and creating accountability within a team where not everything depends on the owner or the entrepreneur themselves. That's really what it's for. Now, you need to make sure that your product has market fit. You need to make sure you're profitable and you know how to scale. And you need to make sure that you know how to sell it. Because if not, then EOS is not going to help you.
Yeah. The other thing that's interesting, we have a problem in SBA land, and I think EOS has the same problem. I call it brand by association. Okay. So you might go try to get an SBA loan from a lender who's really bad at SBA loans. Okay. And then you have a bad experience and you assume that's the SBA. And then you tell all your friends SBA loans are a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
Okay. EOS, so much of the experience, I believe, is driven by who helps you. Now, you may not know any better, but if you have a great implementer or really smart person, you can have an amazing experience. And you have an average or a bleh implementer, you can have not such a great experience, but you don't know any better. So it's interesting. Vistage has the same issue. Your Vistage experience could be heavily driven by your chair. So it's this idea behind like brand by association. Like, so I had one experience with EOS. I won't name it specifically. I was totally underwhelmed.
Yeah.
So it put a bad taste in my mouth, even though I know that's not it's not really what it was. If does that make sense?
No, complete sense. Yeah. And, I think EOS, that's like when your question, do you implement EOS purely or not purely? I think that's one of the things that EOS stresses, is that we all follow the same formula. We all do the same thing. EOS is one of those few systems that is not coach dependent, but system dependent, right? In a lot of other systems, it's a coach diagnosis and implements a tool that you need specifically for your company. So it's very coach dependent, and it varies much more on that experience. I feel that EOS has done a better job in really all of us following the same formula and the same process, so that we try to make sure that everybody gets the same experience. I'm sorry to hear you didn't, but yeah, it's kind of the way it goes,
Yeah,
right?
but it's hard though, because experiences are different, right? So there's no way that the implementer doesn't influence the outcome.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Okay.
Look, even in my firm,
right?
Even in my firm, I have people that come from the operational side of EOS. They're more integrators. There's people like me that are more inspirational and more fun-loving and giving, and so it depends on what you need in your company and in your team as well. Right. So a lot of times when I'm talking to a company and I'm assessing, we have different types of implementers. Most people are like, yeah, like, do you need somebody who's hard ass, who's going to ride, accountability and processes and systems, and they're more on the integrator side of things? Or do you need somebody who's going to inspire your team, rally them, get them, more of a visionary style implementer? Those are very two different experiences. You're right.
So what I encourage people to do when they're looking for a coach, sometimes what people will say, they'll call, I'm looking for a scaling up coach, or I'm looking for an EOS implementer, or whatever. I go, slow down. I go, don't concentrate yet on the system. Go interview 3 or 4 people from very different perspectives. Mm-hmm. And who do you really think is going to push you and you're going to connect with the most? And it's to your point, because people can have different needs at different times. So,
100%. I had a coach here. So in my building, I have the gym and I had a trainer in my building. I'm like, perfect. There's no excuse. I got a coach, a trainer, and the gym in my building. I'll go to the gym every day, right? And then I contract this guy, and then I called him up the first time I couldn't make it. I was trying to make an excuse, and I called him. I was like, I can't make it. He's like, okay. And I'm like, no, that doesn't work for me. Like, I need you to. No, it's like, no, I'm going to bang on your door and I'm going to go get you and we're going to go together, because that's what I need. I need somebody who's going to keep me accountable and get me in line and do this, right? So he might be a great trainer for some people, but he's not the trainer that I need. So I think
I introduced you. I think you're meeting him this week or next week. A friend of mine, Danny Marteau. Did you meet Danny yet?
Oh, next week. I think it's next week. Yeah.
Yeah. He's knocked me into shape pretty hard. So different.
Oh, nice.
Different story. I'm down 17 pounds.
Yeah, it's incredible. I saw you. I told you.
Big difference. So, Lynn, what questions should I have asked Cesar that I didn't ask?
No, what types of businesses, is there an industry that you target, or it's any business? It's business or industry agnostic. You can help any business, or is it specific ones?
Yeah, what I like to say is, since it's a people management system, it's any company that has people we work for, right? So it's the gambit. So I've worked with companies like Crocs, Duracell, big corporate, different divisions, and I've worked with mom and pops, swim schools and roofers and things like that. So it goes a gambit. Different companies need different things at different scale. But they all need the same principles. So in reality, it's more about how do you manage people, how do you align people, and how do you hold better communication and accountability within people. So any company that has people, it kind of works with, because it's a people management system.
Got it.
Are
And
all
so
your
it doesn't
clients?
matter where they are in their business life cycle.
Yeah,
There's
usually,
a place for you in all of the areas, as long as they need other people in their business.
yeah, usually we say 10 to 250 employees is our sweet spot because they're in
Mhm.
that adolescence phase. They're going from entrepreneurial to corporate. You know, they're
Right.
not.
Absolutely.
They're in that transformation of how do we communicate better? How do we align better? How do we? So all of that. That's our sweet spot. From 10 to 250 employees. But yeah, so that's really a sweet spot. Yeah. I mean,
Right.
sorry, you asked something and I didn't hear.
Are all your clients local to South Florida, or do you have clients everywhere?
So yeah, so as a firm, we have clients everywhere. I've tried to stay more local, to be with the family, and I travel enough with my volunteerism. So most of my companies are here in South Florida, but we do service companies all over. Yeah.
Awesome. Did I see at GLC you were running the governance track?
Yeah, they said we need somebody fun to give a little fun to governance.
Oh my
So
God almighty.
we had we had a lot of fun. We danced, we salsa'd, we gave gold stars, and we did a game show. So it was fun.
Oh, very good. Great. Cesar, if our listeners want to learn more about your firm, where do they go?
So our website is theprofitrecipe.com. So it's the Profit Recipe, or Quintero is my last name, Cesar.com. You can also find all my information there.
Awesome.
Great. Well, so interesting. Thank you.
Really
Appreciate
appreciate
it.
you taking the time, your amazing energy after arriving from Asia yesterday. I love it.
It's impressive.
And
This is how I wake up.
wake up. And keep smiling, my friend. And I hope to see you soon.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for the
Thanks. Great to
invitation.
meet you, Jason.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, bye.